stand here today in the midst of a global crisis, a time of uncertainty. With so much unknown about COVID-19, we look towards the essential healthcare workers to help us through the exceptional. They are our contemporary heroes. When we reflect upon the heroes of World War II, we tend to think of soldiers whose places were on the battlefield. Nurses and medical staff may not have always been in the direct line of fire, but they put their lives at risk every single day. Today, I am here to share the story of a nurse, a young woman, who, like our modern healthcare heroes, dedicated her life in the service of others. Born in Syracuse, New York, 2nd Lieutenant Kathryn McCarthy strayed from the norm when she enlisted in the Army Nurse Corps at the age of 22. When World War II prompted a transition towards evolved gender roles, with icons like Rosie the Riveter emerging from the shift. Yet still, the courageous female nurses of World War II lack recognition for their efforts. At the start of the war, there was a significant shortage of nurses. After training in a civilian nursing program, 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy enlisted in the U.S. Army Nurse Corps in 1943. The 4-year nursing program she attended prepared her for the challenges that awaited on the front line. Just like nursing programs today, clinical work and long hours were typical. The head nurses expected obedience, valuing both strong moral character and physically strong young females. These expectations were not unlike those required in service. Due to the initial shortage, nurses found themselves in high demand with much being asked of them. 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy's hometown of Syracuse also found itself adapting to the circumstances. Many industries in Syracuse retooled to produce war goods, including the Onondaga Pottery Company, which secretly developed the M5 anti-tank landmine and the M7 pocket mine. With 25,000 of Onondaga County's men enlisted in the war, there was a growing female presence in the factories. While tending to their families, the women at home helped by making socks and bandages for the wounded soldiers. Syracuse residents felt the weight of World War II, as it was said that the war was all anybody could talk about. While 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy received her nursing education living at home in Syracuse with her large family, she found herself in Drewfield, Tampa, Florida, for her first military training in 1943. Alongside her best friend and fellow Syracuse nurse, 2nd Lieutenant Rita Erard, 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy was initially stationed at Dale Mabry Airfield in Tallahassee, Florida. For a short while, she was stationed in Temple, Texas, before transferring to the 172nd Bushnell General Hospital in Utah. These ventures did not make up the bulk of 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy's service, however, as she mainly served in the China-Burma-India Theater, or the CBI. The CBI is nicknamed the Forgotten Theater, as it tends to be overshadowed by the fighting in Europe and the Pacific Islands. Nurses who served in the CBI were familiar with challenge, as widespread famine and disease were very typical. These challenges led to a shortage of both physicians and medical supplies. This prompted local civilians and military personnel alike to seek treatment from those in the Army Nurse Corps. While the position was not ideal, the nurses adapted. They refined their diagnostic abilities and developed treatment methods that mirrored those used in combat nursing. Cultural and language differences were further hindrances to the nursing effort. Disease control was said to be nearly impossible, as local patients insisted on providing their own food, wandering the hospitals, and socializing with friends. The piles of food that could be found at the patients' bedsides also made way for rat infestations, making disease even harder to contain. Working in unconventional locations, such as jungles and mountain villages, brought their own set of challenges, as did extreme weather in the monsoon season. Additionally, the nurses combated gender-based constraints. The region's local patients were less willing to heed the advice of women and would often disregard their medical guidance. Language barriers made way for further conflict and miscommunication. But still, the nurses overcame these adversities. Nurses serving in the CBI theater, such as 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy, had to be flexible and willing to adapt to many unique and less than ideal circumstances. During her time of service, 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy participated in the Army Medical Department's newly developed chain of evacuation. She accompanied the critically injured and those needing specialized care on flights to general hospitals. 2nd Lieutenant McCarthy and her lifelong friend Rita Erard took part in these evacuation efforts when they served in the 172nd General Hospital and in the 803rd Medical Air Evacuation Squadron. Their divisions flew daring rescue missions in unmarked C-47 aircraft between the military base in Dinjan, India, and hospitals in Kunming, China. This harrowing passage was called flying over the hump, as it involved flying wounded troops over the towering Himalayan mountains at great personal risk. On the foggy night of March 3, 1945, the plane carrying both Second Lieutenants McCarthy and Erard crashed into a mountainside and exploded in flames on its return to Lido, India. There were no survivors. A pilot familiar with flying rescue evacuations over the hump described the incident as the most infamous accident to occur during the war. In total, 17 flight nurses died while on duty during World War II. Second Lieutenant McCarthy was one of them. Although Second Lieutenant McCarthy's life was cut short, her memory remains alive in the words of those who knew her. Bill Kearney, her neighbor and close family friend, recalled her being a wonderful and joyful person. Today, we stand before Second Lieutenant McCarthy's grave and final burial site to commemorate her dedication to our country and selfless service to those she cared for. In this time of a global pandemic, we need to find the courage within ourselves to face the unexpected, to make personal sacrifices for the greater good. Second Lieutenant McCarthy embraced her inner fortitude with determination and courage, demonstrating that in 1945, just like in 2021, not all heroes wear army fatigues. Some wear white coats.